I think you're tired. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everybody. Sunday morning in London, and wherever you are, we hope you are having a good day. This is our second show after Ramadan, I think.
Second show, not all in all, but
Not all in all, after Ramadan. So hopefully you're back to some sort of normalcy of having breakfast.
I look
at a
very different on
time.
the screen today.
You look different. Yeah, you had a haircut. That's the difference.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I was going to say if you can find the difference, I'll give you a prize. But
Oh, I gave her the cat.
my wife has just spoiled my surprise. Never mind.
Good morning, everybody. So we have been having a conversation about what we should be talking about today. And as you know, we at Barefoot, we care about families. We help build confident Muslim families. That's what we feel passionate about. And quite a few things have come up in our conversations that we thought would be very, very useful. One of them was, of course, a lot of things happening on the political scene. We all know what's brewing, what's happening, and we thought we would have a conversation about how do we support our children as a family. How do we help them to become confident in themselves, especially in very, very uncertain times when everything seems to be difficult to manage, and often the rug is pulled from our feet. How do we stand on our identity? How do we ascertain ourselves, and how to remain centered around the spiritual way of being, how we have been brought up? How do we pass the wisdom to our children? How do we empower them? How do we give them voice? How do we give them confidence, courage and clarity in these very difficult times? And I think it's a very important topic to talk about. So of course, as always, we invite you to share your questions, your ideas, your practices with us. It's a conversation that we want to have about these issues, because it's one of those things that can strengthen our community and strengthen the Barefoot family that we are hoping to build up.
Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got children and these children are caught up in various conflicting messages and philosophies, how do you teach them to remain on the straight path? I don't want to call it narrow path, but straight path, a path of certainty, a path that leads them to success of this world and the hereafter, and most importantly, a path that enables them to feel content, happy within themselves, because there's no point you pushing them to do something that they're not going to be very happy with. So we are here to talk about bringing about spiritual education for our children. How do we give our children spiritual education? If you are interested in discussing this with us, why don't you send us a message from the outset as to what things you have in mind, what ideas, what topic, or perhaps what anxieties, concerns, questions that you have that you would like to raise so that we could discuss them. Obviously, you know what to do. Go on our screen and double click and send us a message, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. It doesn't matter. We always find those messages very exciting. So we're talking about spiritual education for our children. Have you been able to do that? Have you been able to provide your children spiritual education?
In a family context, what is your spiritual curriculum? What do you do?
Good question.
How do we start off? Because obviously children as we come from particular family backgrounds, upbringing, stories, we have, all wonderful and horrific and terrible and terrifying and terribly wonderful experiences from our families. What do you do at home that is different? What do you carry on doing, what you were learning? And what is your curriculum for your family's spiritual education?
And growth. So the first and the foremost, when your child is born, you often think about the education of your children.
Oh, I had all this worked out before my kids were born. So.
No, I know that, but I'm saying people start thinking about and begin to plan from after the child is born.
Yeah.
And I'm going to contradict that and say that's absolutely wrong. A child's education doesn't begin after their birth. A child's spiritual education must begin well before they're born. In other words, as a mother and the father, both of your habits and your own well-being, spiritual, physical and mental well-being, will impact your child tremendously. Let me start by giving you an example. If the father and the mother are addicted to substances, for example, if the father smokes, it is very likely that his sperm count is going to be poor. And the quality of a sperm would also be poor. And when an egg is fertilized using such a poor quality sperm, The child born will also have poor quality beginning. The formation, the entire conception, preconception actually, and you have impacted the child's life and its potential by being addicted to substances before the child was born.
Just take a step back, even that's a very powerful point, and also take a step back before you even get married. Your idea of parenting should be part of the conversation.
Of course. You should have changed your lifestyle. And this is why in Islam, destroying your moral and character at any time in life will impact on the long-term health of your own self and of your children. So I want to get you all to wake up and actually look at yourself first. Your children's physical health and mental health and spiritual health is directly impacted by the way you have been all your life.
Physically, emotionally, intellectually, in
Spiritually,
every possible way.
Because every single fiber, every single cell in your body has a memory. And it retains that characteristics, that DNA that you have. And it then passes it on, in some cases, substantially. So if you have been addicted to substance, for example, if a father has been smoking or mother has been smoking, I can tell you that the child born out of a family of that particular background is going to be impacted. So, ladies and gentlemen, spiritual education to your children begins even before your child is born, even before you can come together to have a child. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think it's that spiritual set that we have that determines our feelings, determines our state, determines our faith, determines how we practice. And it's just like, we always say that anxious mothers, for example, if someone suffers from anxiety before pregnancy, and I noticed my mother was always a very anxious person, and by the time she was pregnant, that anxiety was passed down to me, so I was actually born anxious. And we know this, that some of these things get passed down. So there's a spiritual readiness before we can begin talking about spiritual education for children, because we need to educate ourselves about what is the optimal spiritual level in which I'm creating an environment for my children to come into. And that comes from the mother first, of course, because we are the ones giving birth. But then that spiritual connection or lack of it in the home is obvious. We know my own experience as well, but we know from other people, if you're smoking in the house, you're smoking in the car, your hearing is going to be deeply impacted. I can't hear through one of my ear because my parents smoked in the car when I was little, and they smoked in the house. So there was no other way for me to know what to do. I never liked it, but I didn't know at the time it was going to impact my hearing.
Another friend of ours is the same. He's deaf partially because of a glued ear, and that came from parents smoking incessantly in the house. Chain smoking father is what he had, and today he's grown up a man who can't hear much.
Yeah.
And it's deeply disturbing, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to just bring this back to you again and again. Your behavior, your attitude, your own personal character, spiritual character, your intellectual character, your emotional character will work with you or against you, depending on how you have been, even before you get married. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is when you're married, and when your wife has conceived a child, her behavior, her habits, and her personal attitude to life will also impact the child as it is growing. Did you know if the mother is anxious, as my wife said, during pregnancy, if the mother is nervous during pregnancy, if the mother is fearful during pregnancy, the chemical changes are felt by the baby inside the womb. And the baby reacts to fright, joy, happiness, sadness, surprise. The baby reacts to them as the mother is reacting because of the changes in chemicals that the baby feels. These impact the way the baby is. So if you have been very used to watching television while you are pregnant, you won't be surprised when you are grown, when you have given birth to your child. The child would be very used to the music or the tune that has been played to this baby throughout. An experiment I read about, a mother who used to watch EastEnders all the time. found the baby calmer and much at ease when EastEnders was playing, and she would leave the baby in front of the television, just listening to the tune and the music. Isn't that astonishing?
It is. Well, it is and it isn't. Welcome everybody. Thank you for letting us know you're with us. After you're saying is there's a lot of disturbance in the sound. So could you let us know if it's for everyone or maybe something on our end?
That's because has been not plugged in.
Oh, I hope it's better now. You can hear us.
Yeah, 100% better. I'm pretty certain.
I can hear the fan. Maybe the fan of the computer.
No, it's not the fan anymore. It is straight into the jack that. The sound button wasn't clicked in. Whoever put it in.
Just amazing. This is exactly what the child does. You know, when we are pregnant, through the umbilical cord, we are either plugged in with the right sound and the right voice, or we are not. So that is absolutely fundamental. And those of you who have children, multiple children, you will know that every single child you had has some resemblance of what kind of pregnancy you had. My first child, our first child, was born without any painkillers. You know, literally yoga breathing. I was without gas and air. I was without any painkillers, and throughout the pregnancy, I was not drinking coffee. I was looking after myself in an amazing way. I did yoga. I did meditation. I did the whole works. And she is a really chilled out kid. She has always been. So she never loses her cool. And with the second one, it was very different. So those of you who have different children, just reflect on what kind of pregnancy you had and what was going on in your life at the time, and how that perhaps is now visible on your children. So it's absolutely true that we set the tone for the children to come into this world. Now, I have been also thinking a lot about how spiritual education is actually the beginning of our own education about spirituality, and it became very, very clear to me in Ramadan particularly. I started studying the Jewels of the Quran by Imam Al-Ghazali, and I have 3 points which I want to discuss later on, but let's go through it.
Some messages have come through. Aisha Begum says Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. Jana Hal says Assalamu alaikum, dear brother and sister.
Haven't seen you for a while, Jana.
So nice to see you both. Hope you're well. Late Eid Mubarak. It is indeed very late Eid Mubarak. Jana, this is what, 20 days later? Is it 20 days later? 10 days later. Athia says salam. There is a lot of disturbance in the sound. I think we've fixed it.
Let us
Salwa
know.
Alam says Assalamu alaikum. Listening and watching from Camden. Very good topic. Sound is very clear. Thank you. Jana Hall says it's better now. The sound.
Okay,
course.
Great. Thank you.
I knew it was just that unplugged.
The plug. Great.
So, ladies and gentlemen, so mother and the father's behavior before they are married, throughout their marriage, will impact on the child. Mother's behavior, her attitude, her habits will be impacting her child's education, and therefore we should be mindful of both. And now the child is born. If the child is born in a messy home, it's very likely that the child will grow up in a messy home, to become messy himself or herself.
But he will become very comfortable with mess, therefore he can't create order.
Correct. And secondly, if the child is born in a very loud, very unruly family, in the sense that there is no discipline, shouting and screaming, swearing, abusive space, if the child is born in an abusive space, that's exactly what child will think is normal. He'll grow up thinking abuse is normal. And therefore the child himself or herself will become abuser most likely to other people, unless they're stopped, unless they're consciously prevented, or they wake up to realizing, oops, I don't want to do that. So your children's education, before you even introduce spirituality, must encompass an environment of safety. That's what Allah says in the Quran, Sakina. For those of you who don't know, the Arabic word Sakina actually means a home that is safe and secure. Sound, secure and safe, far away from abuse or threats, violence of all nature and shapes and sizes. Ladies and gentlemen, if that's missing in your family home, I've got bad news for you.
Well, the thing is, what I always think about these kind of conversations, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those of us who are engaging with this conversation, we have probably taken steps, and we have already, we talked to the converts already. But what is really interesting is that setup of the family home is an opportunity for us to part from our abusive past, to part from the things that we didn't like. Because I think I can put my hands on heart, I don't know anyone who hasn't got some sort of baggage that we had to struggle with when we were children ourselves. And at that time, we probably not consciously, but we decided, I will never do like my mom, I will never do like my dad, my home will never be like this. But subconsciously, we still keep making the same decisions. We have the same kind of arguments like our parents did because it's not conscious. So once your children are born, everything has to become more conscious to be able to move away from that pattern that we have built up in our head.
Some interesting. Jana Hall says, miss your sister Henrietta. Jana, don't say that. I'm here too. You just miss Sister Henrietta. What about?
We haven't seen her for a while on camera because I think she was not coming to the show for a while. So that's why I said it's been a while.
I know she's missing you, but she's not missing me.
Excuse me.
Well, we have a couple here together. Well, our programs are... Jana, just joking with you. Shireen Malik says, Assalamu alaikum. Nice to see you both. Today's topic is a very sensitive one for me. Explain that a bit more, Shireen Malik. Why is it so sensitive to you? I want to know more. So we can maybe use that as a discussion point, unless, of course, you want to keep it very private. Jana Hall says, I love this topic. I think such an important discussion, much needed support in our society. So, ladies and gentlemen, how do you create a safe space at home for your children's spiritual growth? If parents don't pray...
We talked about spiritual family, right? We talked about the setup of...
Yeah, I'm just about to introduce
what
that.
it is.
But my point is, if parents don't pray, the children will not see the need to pray. They will not. If parents don't have intellectual conversations, children will not see the need for it. If parents don't discuss the Quran, read the Quran, or have any education around the Quran, children will find no reason why. If parents don't give charity, the children will see no reason to give charity. Parents are the living embodiment of all the good things that you want your children to do. Okay, now over to you, madam.
Well, no, I totally agree with that. But I also think it's important that we understand that for me, it's about engagement. It's about continuous engagement with our children. And that's what we see in many, many families today, is that it's not so much that they don't have security. So once you have, the hierarchy of needs, the first is safety and security, and you go up 5 levels, the Maslow theory, which some part of it I don't agree with. But once you are safe and secure, and you have a baseline setup of you're okay, it's after that, it's all to do with engagement. How do you engage with a spiritual education? And a lot of parents, this is what happens, this is what I see happening. A lot of parents are dying for the children to be spiritual and to be more whole and more self-expressed and closer to God and closer to spirituality. But they themselves have a huge gap. They don't know what it means. They don't know what does spirituality mean for them. So I'm talking about real cases here where people complain about, oh, my children are on the phone all the time. Okay, what about your own habits? My children are not praying. What about your habits? My children are not interested in Islam. When was the last time you took a course? So it's modeling, which is really, really important. But for me, it's about engaging. And I think
it's both engaging and modeling.
Because now what's happening is kids go to school and there are some really pressing issues that that generation, our children are not going to lie down and just take anything without fighting for it. Or if they are convinced, they will talk about this. How do we give them that confidence to be able to do that?
I like the word modeling and engaging. So, for example, in our case, we engage both of our children for education as well as the courses that we're developing. So the 30 Rules of Life course that I did in the month of Ramadan, I had my daughter editing all the notes that I had written down. I deliberately gave it to her, even though she's young, even though she is not experienced. I wanted her to provide a full input. So I told her, why don't you look at the structure of the course, go through every single page and see if they're consistent, if the verses are consistent with the references, if the structure of the course is consistent from one to the other, layout, design, content. And you know what she did? She read the entire 30 Rules of Life that I wrote, and she edited every single bit. In fact, in some of the chapters, some of the rules, she even gave her own personal commentary of the Quran on the side that I really liked, and I kept them. And I want to value her contribution because I believe that was her engaging with my work and me engaging her and valuing her brain and her intellect and giving her that importance that she needs to feel. And my son, Ibrahim, I engaged him for the whole month of Ramadan in developing quiz that we did every night. I did every night. Without his help, I would not have been able to do the quiz because on my own, I would not have been able to come up with all those questions every day. 10 to 15 questions he came up with and the answers, laid it out on a quiz platform, made sure it all consistent. Of course, he had to learn it himself. It was the first time ever that he had done anything like that. engaging every ounce of his brain, engaging and modeling. So not only do we engage them intellectually, but we also modeled it. They both participated in the course of the program. And everyone who took part in our program, my children would have also been party to that. And that's an amazing achievement in my view. And I was so proud of my children that at this age, when they're teenagers, we're able to engage and model what we want them to be for the future.
Yes, and the other really important part of it is that when they, so that's what we do to support them in their spiritual and religious learning. But there's something also very important that I'm very passionate about, is how do we have conversations with our children. And I just want to give you one thing. When they come back from school, don't ask them how was school. That is the worst question you can ask a child. And my daughter gave me a lecture about this. She said, Mom, if you ask me this question, my brain just shuts down. There's nothing I can say. So you have to find other ways of finding out what was going on during the day, what made that, ask a different question. There is a different door. I use every opportunity in the car. I pick, this is literally like digging. It's like an archaeology. We have to dig information from, particularly in teenage years. We have to dig out what happened. They don't know how to articulate. They are bullied, they don't know how to say it. They know it's wrong, but they don't know how to start articulating. You really need to start digging. For me, that's a really important part of it. We need to understand what goes through in their mind, in their heart when they are at school and something happens, so they can articulate themselves. And these things are so deeply, you just remember yourself. I remember when I was a kid, I was tired, I was exhausted, I couldn't wait to get home and just relax and push my brain away and not thinking about anything. I didn't know how to speak to my parents about the school. In conversations, we learn what happens to children's lives.
Yes, absolutely. Some messages have come through. It's unfair if we don't read them. Hafsa Adam says, Salam, my kids are all teenagers, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Looking back, I truly believe that the best spiritual education comes from the of the parents living the spiritual life, their own example, and surrounding the children in a good environment, community, and good companions as much as possible. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Very beautifully put. Habiba Shabib Okla has written, Salam.
Assalamualaikum, Habiba.
MashaAllah, tough topic. Many greetings from Dubai.
Yes, tough subject, I know.
And Jana Hull says, Sister Hannah, have been off camera for a while. Of course, we miss you both.
Because I'm not doing my one-to-one, but I'm coming back to it, inshallah.
Thank you, Jana. May Allah bless you. I was just teasing you, but it's nice. Fatima Hamza says, Assalamu alaikum. A much needed topic of discussion. So,
Yeah.
what do you think is missing from our community's approach to, or our parents' approach to giving our children spiritual education? Is it that engaging and modeling that my wife talked about? In other words, you being the change that you want to see in your children at home, or something else? I want to ask you that frank and open, honest question.
And if you notice, in our title, we didn't give it, how do we give religious education to our children? We said it's a spiritual education because it encompasses the emotions, the knowledge, the faith that we stand for and what we want our children to learn about. So this is not about sending the kids to a Saturday school, to madrasa. This is a whole new comprehensive way of looking at children's education.
It's very interesting when I say to people that I teach sometimes. They say, oh, you must be teaching how to read the Quran instantly.
Right.
Because I'm an imam, the automatic assumption amongst our community is that, oh yeah, madrasa teacher, he teaches how to read the Quran. No, I don't do that. Actually, I'm not even qualified to teach the Quran, because you need to have some sort of ijaza, as they call it, or permission to teach, or certification to teach, if you go by the modern standard. I'm not even qualified to teach anyone how to read the Quran. I struggle to read my own. May Allah accept it, inshallah. Yeah. But what I am good at is teaching how to take life skills from the Quran, essential lessons. So this attitude our communities have: teach our children religion, send them to madrasa, make them read the Quran, let them do a khatam of the Quran once in their life, put the Quran away. I've done the Quran when I was 7. Yeah. I did when I was 5, somebody said to me the other day. I said, really? Could you speak? Anyway, these kind of proud moments that my children have finished a khatam has nothing to do with spiritual education. Absolutely zero. Because a khatam will not do any good to a child. And a child does not have rewards or punishment when they're a child, because they have no accountability. Their account begins when they reach the age of puberty. So if a child has done the khatam of the Quran, alhamdulillah, they've done it, right? What impact does that have on that child? Very little. Whereas if you teach spiritual education, which teaches them to be compassionate, which teaches them about how to be caring, which teaches them how to connect within themselves and connect with the society around. That spiritual education will stay with them for the rest of their life. It's called tools that they need to live a spiritual life, rather than information that you may have shoved down their throat that will disappear just because you did it. They're not interested. How do you?
If anything, people run away from it when they are forced to do. We know so many people, families, they come to us. I was forced to pray. I was forced to go to madrasa. I hated it.
Remember that example we had with our daughter? I still remember it.
Which one?
She came to me when she was going to school, secondary school, at the beginning of it. And she said to me, Daddy, I'm going to a secondary school. I said, yes, I know you are. She goes, I know you would like me to wear hijab. I said, I've never said that to you. She goes, but I know you would. You are an imam. You've got, you teach Islam, and Islam says this. I said, well, I'm not going to force anything up to you. You do whatever you want. She goes to me, well, I'm not ready right now. And that was a profound moment for me to realize, actually, I need to wait for my child to be ready.
Ideally, you would have wanted her at that point, right?
No, wallahi, I was indifferent. I was in a position where I said, when she reaches the age of puberty, she will need to decide. This is her choice. But as parents would encourage them, of course. So at the age of 14, she said, I will put it up when I'm about 14. We went to Tunisia when she was 13. When we came back, it was the year when she was studying into 14. And we were, it was a school day, and she was getting ready. And subhanAllah.
I think it was first day at school, year 9, beginning of year 9, yeah.
She put it up, put it on her head, and she came downstairs. I said, what's that? She goes, oh, I'm ready to go to school with the hijab. And I said, really? Yes. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Her rationale was very powerful. She said to me, Daddy, if I put it on my head because you told me to do so when I wasn't ready, I would have taken it off. Any opportunity that came, I would have taken it off. And if I put it on because I'm convinced and I want to put it on, then that's my choice. And then it's not going to come off. I said, darling, you do whatever you feel comfortable with. For me, that's spiritual education.
For me, what was really important about this is that it was her non-Muslim friends who supported her.
Yes.
It was all her friends who were non-Muslims. They were in awe of it. They said, we support you, we will stand with you, we help you. At lunchtime, they hang around, they go to the prayer hall. While she prays, the girls wait for her. The Christian girls stand and they fend off so she can focus on her prayers. They removed Jesus's picture from the chapel. For me, this feels that it was coming from her, and she didn't have to throw away her identity. She didn't have to please anybody. We didn't force it on her. She needed to go through herself, through her own journey.
And she felt comfortable at school with her friends.
Yeah.
Different color scarf, different looks, etc. All of that, ladies and gentlemen. So empowering your children to be being spiritual is about giving them the tool. So modeling, right? Engaging, modeling, and empowering by giving them the tool. Do you give your children the tool to be able to pray or to be able to understand the essence of prayer? Do you give them the tools why they should fast and how to fast and what parameters of fasting there are? Why? All those rationales. Do you give them tools? So tool for spiritual living. Charity. Why should they give charity? Why should they engage and care about other people?
I actually think we should not give children an idea of what to think. We have to teach them how to think.
Correct.
This is the baseline. Because what you think, you can force it on people, and when you become a teenager, just like we did, we went against everything our parents were teaching us. We said, no, I'm building up my own identity, my own opinions, and we go literally against our parents' way of thinking. And that's a very natural thing to do, by the way. This is the time. Teenage years are the time when our identity is remodeling itself, and we are molding ourselves into something completely different. Very, very often we go against our parents because we have been given what to think, but we were not taught how to think. So for me, I grew up in a liberal family, so my parents didn't really bother about spiritual education because they didn't have it themselves. It was a communist country, so I had to figure this out for myself, and it only came after I had a very serious accident where I nearly died, and I was in a coma for 3 days, and that was late in life. I was 24 when I realized that my life has a meaning, and I need to find out what that is for myself.
And that was your wake-up call.
Oh, totally.
But children, you don't have, you see, the children need to have a wake-up call. What they need to have is a conscience that you have nurtured, and you've given them how rather than what. Often when people tell me, how do I pray? I tell them, you don't need to know how to pray. Pick up a book. I don't want to waste my time teaching you. Tell me, why do I need to pray? How do I believe in Allah? I can't teach you that. Tell me, why do I need to believe? Why do I need to do charity? I love answering why questions rather than how. Why gives you rationale and it stays with you. How comes in through one ear and out through the other. Messages again. Jana Hall says education and understanding the children's knowing how to be caring without unrealistic expectations. Instead of teach them and let them grow, they will make decisions. Give them the ability to think through their intellectual and understanding. Okay, thank you.
Hafsa, you've got a long message.
Hold on a few more before. Manura Begum is giving us a shocking sign.
Tell us about that phase.
And Jana Hall says, as parents, we must continue teaching and setting good examples, and at the same time, give them space to think. Hafsa, do you want to read that one?
Yes. So building trust with our kids is crucial. When kids open up, it's so hard not to react, but they need. But we need our kids to trust that they can share without us judging them. Some of the things going on in school nowadays is truly shocking. It's toxic and spiritually draining environment, but it's their reality. We need to stay in the loop so we can help them navigate. But that requires their trust. Dealing with the school environment feels like an uphill battle at times. Thank you so much for saying that. I said to my husband when the kids started, I was homeschooling them until the age of 11. Our real struggle started when they went to school. It's because it's not... And I wasn't one of those homeschoolers who were always at home. I was very active. We were part of lots of groups and my kids were doing all sorts of activities. Every single day there was somewhere else. I literally spent my time in the car. When they started school, I think the mental training and conditioning started.
Yes.
And they brought back stuff which was never part of conversations for us before. And we had to take it as an opportunity. How do we teach them how to react to that? What to do? How to manage? How to navigate all those complexities? And it's not because they were not exposed to any of these when they were homeschooled. They were. We traveled. We engaged. They did bake sales when they were home educated, and they did all sorts of things. But there was something quite sinister. I believe there was something. The reason why I home educated my children is because I didn't want to be lost. I didn't want them to lose their identity when at school. Is a lot about conforming. It's about your individual style, your individual way of learning doesn't count.
And also the influences of the families.
And you can't have any impact on who is going to be in the class and what kind of impact children are bringing from home. And I think it's an unnecessary battle for a 5-year-old in England. Yeah. They start school at 5.
I like the sister's point. It's a toxic environment.
Yes.
And it drains all the spiritual knowledge and the teaching that you may have given your children. So
Absolutely.
Therefore, and I'm afraid it's like the antibiotics you take. If antibiotics doesn't work at one strength, you have to up the game and get a stronger antibiotics, right? So as parents, if you're trying to keep your children in the path of spirituality, you have to up your game. It's not enough just to send them to local madrasa after school for 2.5 hours or 2 hours and then give them brain-numbing parrot fashion memorization program. It's not upping the game. Those children grow up knowing this is boring, school is exciting. How do you up the game? How do you really counter the toxic environment with more positivity, more spirituality? How do you take away the elements that are draining spiritual education? How do you refill the brain with more spiritually sound, exciting programs?
You remember when many years ago we did the life school?
Yeah.
We had 30 children with us for 5 days over the Christmas holidays because it was an alternative for Muslim children to spend. And we set up a school called Life School, and we had the concepts of forgiveness, compassion, and all the things, courage that we could do. But we did it in such a fun way that the kids really enjoyed engaging with the material. But it's the methodology. It's how do we make children understand what these amazing concepts that we have in Islam, what it means on a daily basis at school. How do I step into courage when I feel like my legs are wobbly? And at school, I think it's a lot of conformity, and focusing on that takes away all your energy to actually focus on who you are. Good. Because you're conforming into something who you are not.
Yes, and Habiba says that is going back to Vitra. Children, I believe, come with everything. We change it with it.
Our unconscious patterns.
And this is Rasulullah's own statement. It's the environment that changes the child's behavior. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to bring about spiritual education to your children, you better create a spiritual space and a path and a pattern that would work for the children.
Monura Begum said, we spoil kids too much these days. I totally agree.
I had a father yesterday on the phone
true.
telling me that my child is on the phone with her device all the time. and it's almost 24 hours a day, and I don't know what to do.
It's a bit late.
Yeah, why?
It's a bit late
13-year-old,
realizing it.
13-year-old kid. Why does the 13-year-old kid have a device on which he or she is glued on 24 hours a day? Why? What is it that's going on in that child's life, the mind of the child, that the child needs the phone 24 hours a day? As adults, it's bad enough. It's bad enough to be able to put our phone away. Influences are not the issues when you're an adult. It's the constant supply of information, overdose of information that we struggle to decipher ourselves. What about children? So if your child is constantly on the device, forget spirituality, my brothers and sisters. It's all materialism that is coming into their head. And of course, an open, gaping hole for shaitan to destroy that innocent, fitra-driven, natural, basic instinct of a child.
But also the addiction, that we need to look at addiction, that the brain responds to addiction very, very astutely, and the brain knows exactly what we are giving it. It responds to dopamine, it responds to adrenaline, and after a while it developed a pathway inside of your brain where it's just much easier that just look at your own self, how many times you pick up the phone unconscious. And this is a state of rafla. This is when we just do things and we don't even realize why we are doing it. Now what it does to a child, and particularly I'm very passionate about this for those of you who have younger children, I don't think a child should have a device before the age of 8. And you might think I am
8? That's too early.
No, what I mean is a device on its own and for hours and hours. Even television, for me, it's a very contentious.
It has to be supervised. A child should not have a device until. Why do they need a device?
Everyone is walking around with iPads, and that's. I know this is the modern reality, but I'm very traditional in that sense. If I could, I would allow the children. I've actually encouraged my children, write with chalk on a board, play with clay. The manual stuff that is our natural essential. Your kids, if they are not used to it, they will kick and shout for about an hour. After that, I can tell you, you take the kids to something manual, they will enjoy it so much. And I saw it in my own kids. When we were in Spain, I told them, you can't bring anything from home except a box of Lego. If you are bored, I'm taking you to the mountains. That's all we did. Not once my kids complained, ever. I took them to a village where they were grinding chickpeas to make flour. For hours, they had so much fun. Fresh air, good food, grinding, manual work, sending them to the garden, doing something that is taking them out of the head is the only thing we can give to children because it keeps their body occupied. Device sends them into their head.
It makes them lazy. Is mind-numbing device, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Hafsa Adam says, I think they are growing up in an atheist environment at school. It's very nuanced, but it can shift and influence their line of thinking and questions they ask. 100% correct, Hafsa, there. And how do you and I counter that? That's why some parents don't send their children to atheist schools. They send them to faith schools. Even to church schools, they say it's better because atheism is not being drummed down the child's brain and throat. It's very important to preserve the natural faith-based DNA that we are born with and not corrupted by the incessant supply of atheistic material that we have in our society. Manwara Begum says, and we fear to say anything because it comes under being toxic or emotional abuse. You know, sisters and brothers, don't be afraid to tell your children no. You've got a reason for it. I don't want your brain to become numb. I don't want you to fry your brain. If you don't say no and don't learn to say no, you're actually sending your children a terrible message, and that is there are no boundaries. You can do what you like. There is nobody to say no. There is no accountability. Without accountability, life doesn't go on. If I jump the traffic light and the police catches me, there is accountability. If I speed on the motorway, there is accountability. If I break the law, there is accountability. So life without accountability is not true. Teach the children that at spiritual level, at emotional level, there is also accountability.
Right. So that brings me to, I've taken notes today before I came to the
session.
Just
finish this off and then we'll come to your note. I didn't give my kids a phone till they were 16, 17. I'm okay with that. I agree with you, Munwara. S.H. Begum says, my kids aren't allowed to take iPad out of the home and they aren't allowed smartphone till they reach 16. They have a phone just for calling me. All their classmates have smartphones, but your real friend are the ones
Yes.
who will be your friends, whether you have a smartphone or not smartphone. Brilliant point. Over to you.
No, I was just thinking that I was taking notes before I became on live, to how do we do this? Because you see, the reality is that we as Muslim parents, we have to have a different approach. We have to have a different take. And as you said, we have to up our game of how do we counteract what's happening on the outside while we retain an identity that is so important. And I found a very simple but a very profound way of introducing this topic of what spiritual education is. I started studying the jewels of the Quran by Imam Al-Ghazali, which is just a brilliant selection of Quranic pieces and information. But there are three really important points that this book is actually built on. One is that the whole idea, and this is what we believe, is that what we spoke about is when you ask the child to memorize the Quran, for example. I use that example, and for a long time I didn't understand why are parents so pushy about, you have to memorize the Quran, and as you go along you realize that the Quran that you have in you, whether it's in English or in Arabic, of course Arabic is a much better way of doing it, but whatever Quran you have in you, it's a conversation and a relationship that is starting when you start the memorization, and it stops when you die. So it's a constant conversation, and you memorize the ayahs, but some of those messages are going to come back to you when they are necessary. So for example, in North Africa, there are madrasas, the children learn, and even if they go off the path of Islam, that message is so subliminal, it's in the subconscious, that they will come back no matter what. They sin, we come back. We do something wrong, we come back. So that's a very important part of what I wanted to say. But three really interesting areas. One is, how do we teach children? So the book is based on how do we teach children about getting to know God. So what does it mean for us, getting to know God? It doesn't mean that you go to the madrasa and someone tells you that if you do something wrong, you're going to rot in hell. That's not education about God. God is in the signs, it's in the details, it's in nature, it's in beauty. God's signs are everywhere. Teaching children how to connect and see those signs.
We were taught that, actually. I still remember my teachers, how they used to teach us maths, chemistry, physics, because I went to an Islamic school. And using Quranic signs, or these signs that are in nature, constantly connecting theories, practices. It was so powerful. I have never forgotten them.
Yeah, so this is something that, we try to teach them kids about God, but in the way we do it, they go further away from God instead of understanding it. So this is about application.
So making it real.
Making the connection that what you are studying is an expression of God. This is a product that God, a creation of God, and how do you relate to that as a human being? That's number one. Number
we've
two,
got Hamisu from Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Of course, Shahid Latif says, Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, Ajmal Masroor and Henrietta Sobati. My wife is here. And Salma Rahman says, Assalamu alaikum. Salma Rahman, where have you been? You're very late.
Alaikum.
Very late today. We are nearly finishing our program. Salma, you're supposed to be the first one on our program. I'm just joking with you.
That's okay. I think she will go back to the beginning of the session. Second is the process of what is the path to get to that understanding of what good God is. And third, what is that state that we want to be when we die and go for the day of judgment. So these are three massive areas. One is to get to know God. It's a lifelong learning. What is the path? And this is where you start learning about how to be present with your prayers. What is the meaning of charity? It's a whole new field. Everything is so vast, and we have to pay attention. And third, what is that state, that emotional and spiritual state that we want? What is your aim for your children? What kind of children do you want? You know, a lot of people make a argument about, I don't want to send them to non-Islamic school. And we have a very interesting situation. One of our children goes to non-Muslim school, and the other one goes to a Muslim school, both single-sex schools. And we had this conversation, is that why is this better than the other? And it's not about what's better for or worse. What suits the character of your child?
And it also balances them both out, because they are constantly having discussions between themselves about what you learn from a secular school and the other one is an Islamic school, and you marry them together at your own pleasure, leisure, playful time with your sibling, and you have the debate. And this is an amazing thing. I can see how my son, Ibrahim, because of Islamic school environment, he is constantly supplemented with Islamic teachings at everything that he is doing. Stories, this, that, and the other. Noura has been through all of this when she was at home, but she's not there with the knowledge that's being thrown at her every day. So Ibrahim is supplementing it. And Noura is giving a lot of secular, highbrow stuff from her school that Ibrahim is also finding extremely enriching. I think this is very good. So that was our decision based on what was most suitable for our children. And of course, we found this to be the most suitable way. But brothers and sisters, what about you? How do you provide your children that spiritual education? Spiritual education at home for them. Actually, we didn't even define what spiritual education is. We should have done that before, right at the beginning of our program. What is spiritual education for you? How do you look at spiritual education, Hannah?
How do I look at it?
Yeah, what is spiritual education?
I think it's the education that brings the best out of you as a human being. It enriches your potential and it takes you to your highest potential. And I don't think that's possible without having a strong, reliable faith and practices that keeps you on that the religious side of education.
For me, spiritual education is about balancing their fitra, their natural disposition, with the realities of materialistic life that they lead. So I put it like this. In my life, I'm always looking for spirituality in all material things that I do. And I'm looking for material in all spiritual things that I do. And I marry them together. That's been me. I don't know whether you have noticed that, but I am not somebody who compartmentalizes spirituality outside. In my prayer, I am looking for material. When I'm going out to do a job, in it I'm looking for spirituality. And that constant balancing act is what I call spiritual education. I'd like my children to know that even if they're traveling in the outer space, in a spacecraft, and discovering a different planet, they still can be very deeply spiritual.
And they have to pray.
If they want to pray, of course.
Yeah.
And prayer is not the only manifestation of spirituality.
No.
So for example, if I'm eating my food, if I can half my date and share it with somebody. I remember this amazing experience in Mecca, in Medina actually, sitting down in Haram. And there was a brother, forget Haram, that's a very spiritual. In the UK, in Liverpool Mosque, where I'm one of the trustees, I was inside the mosque, Abdullah Qulim Mosque, and it was Maghrib time, and I came inside the masjid. As soon as I came in, the adhan for Maghrib was given. And some brothers in the mosque were fasting. They were walking around, splitting their dates in half and giving it to everybody. Brother, share. Brother, share. One had a banana, he split it up into small pieces to give to everybody. This is spirituality, brothers and sisters, that you care enough to share. For me, spirituality is when my children are walking along the street and they see a rubbish on the floor, they pick it up and put it in the bin. That's spirituality for me. My spirituality is when they see their parents are not well, to support them. When they see their grandparents needing help, they support them. When they see their neighbors in distress, they go for their help. When they see an animal, a cat distressed, they run to its rescue. To me, all of that is spirituality. How can I give them that? Is by me modeling it myself. If I don't behave like this, then my children won't.
So you're essentially just saying it's about behavior.
It's about living, everyday living. Otherwise, you're not spiritual at all. This lip service of spirituality is outer facade. My garment, my beard, my hijab, these are not signs of spirituality. Prophet ﷺ described spirituality with the Arabic word taqwa. Taqwa, he said, hahuna. At-taqwa hahuna, pointing to his heart, because he is meaning actual spirituality is the inner being of you.
For me, it's presence. It's really about being present to everything I do, being present to knowing when I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, when I'm off the rail, when I'm thinking about I have to do the prayer just because I need to get it off the list. That's not presence.
Of course.
That's just a chore that I'm doing, and I might just go to the market and do some shopping. So it's literally being present. And what I noticed about this Ramadan is that while Ramadan is, of course, it's wonderful when it happens in Ramadan, but sometimes these openings to this knowledge it doesn't happen in Ramadan, but it happens after, and it happens at a time when you can sustain. And for me, a Ramadan achievement is a practice that you can actually sustain
Throughout the whole.
after Ramadan. So by the time you get to the next Ramadan, you're already a little bit further away down the line than what you were before. So it's if your thing is that, you know, I'm not quite sure that I can maintain the practices of my prayers on time, if you can just develop a habit around that before next Ramadan, that's an achievement, because Ramadan is the boost, it's the kickstart, it's the one that you really think about, this is how I want to be. And for children it's the same. What's your aim for your children? You know, what kind of people you want your children to be? I know a lot of people say, oh, I just want my children to wear the hijab, that's enough for me. Well, if that's what you want, you might get it, but you may not. She might just take it off and throw it away.
And she may be wearing hijab and doing all sorts of other evil things
behind your back.
or your son may be
Absolutely.
having a nice beard, wearing all sorts of amazing clothes that you like, but actually maybe I know kids
Yes.
who have been forced into memorizing the Quran,
Yes.
Hafiz, and guess what? They're selling drugs.
Yes.
I've met kids like that, sadly.
Yes.
Many other points have been raised. Shahid Latif, a very naughty question. I'm not going to even answer it. It's for another program. Salma Rahman says it is a holistic life approach in your day-to-day living. Absolutely. Romana Ahmed says holidays, movies, and socialization with our children is important, so they don't feel like they are missing out. My son is now 21 and mature, and I always remind him how proud I am of him. My daughter is 12, and although I don't have the same level of health and energy, I make sure her life is balanced with fun and spiritual education. Thank you. S.H. Begum says, I think
parents from the Indian subcontinent take their children out of madrasa as soon as they begin Quran. I think keep the children around that environment as long as possible. We can never stop seeking knowledge.
Good point. But
Yeah.
madrasa needs a proper overhaul, because for me, the current level of madrasa teaching is awful. It's not really doing the job. The next one.
Habiba, spirituality is integrating your separated parts and coming back to oneness with whole with your body, soul and heart. And in practice is exactly what Brother Ismail described, conscious living with all our parts as one. Yes, Hafsa is saying, I have found creating regular dopamine detox moments, switching off all devices, as parents too, calms them and opens their mind for more creativity, quality family time and spiritual learning.
It's good, the English word, dopamine. Dope. What does dope mean? Remember, dope, being duped into a dope, not a good thing. So dopamine is a good way. Detox your brain from the dopamine supply that you need.
Salma, it's being mindful in everything we do, it's having gratefulness and taking everything back to our creator. Some people are coming salams. Shahid is okay with you not answering the question. And Ruzi says, brother, your Friday speech khutbah was so good that I posted it over Facebook and other social medias.
You're welcome, my dear sister. It was
Thank
all
you.
about Palestine and educating ourselves about the truth behind what's happening there. But you know, even that in itself, political discussions, you can find spirituality in it.
Yeah.
We have introduced that to our children. My daughter is, at the forefront of her school at the moment, trying to educate her children, her colleagues and peers about the importance of standing for justice. Not because they're Palestinian or Muslims, no, because they're dispossessed people. I don't want my children to grow up thinking that Muslims are some sort of a privileged, saved nation and therefore they should have the privileges of doing anything. No, it's all about justice and fairness. Even if you are a person of faith or no faith, I don't care. Teaching your children that is spirituality as far as I'm concerned. Deep level of spirituality manifests itself in character and behavior and in your social interaction.
For me, spirituality is a courage. It's an act of being able to show your whole self without being fearful about what you stand for, have an opinion, have a vocabulary for it, have a language for it, and have a communication that actually engages other people, Muslims, non-Muslims, whoever they are. It's really being your entire whole self, and to be able to just operate at that level without being fearful of someone is going to shut you down. And I encourage all parents, especially in the current climate, please don't tell your children just go and sit down and be quiet and don't do anything about what's going on around Palestine. We have to keep a low profile. I don't think that's a way for our community forward. We are educated. We are educated, community. We have strong beliefs and we have a very deep sense of justice.
We don't want to create sheep in our families.
Yeah.
We want to create lions. I'm telling you, I don't want a sheep in my family. I want lions to rule and roar the jungle of the world, right? A civilized world must not be given over to people who are not hell-bent on promoting egotism, selfishness, materialism, war and destruction. No, it must be led by a good, spiritually sound, justice-driven, fair-minded, conscientious young people. That's what I believe in, and that's what I'm investing in our children and on the other children. When I went to the Palestine demonstration, I was very, very encouraged to see 80% of people around me were young people.
Yeah, younger generation is not going to sit down like the previous generation, say nothing and do nothing. When people are passionate, young people are passionate about some of the things, and they will be articulate about this. So how do we give them the right tools? How do we give them the language for how to use it, and use it in the right way, use it in the best possible way, instead of renting and going on limousines and shouting and screaming.
Unless we lead them. So I took my children to demonstration. They know this is a legitimate way of protesting. I get my children to write and edit my work because they see daddy writing, protesting. They see how we prioritize. They see me interviewing. They see me being interviewed on television and radio. They see their mum discussing, talking about it. Life is about living, not about being a miserable, unhappy, terrible self. I'm glad Hafsa found my joke of dope.
Dope, yeah, that's a good one.
Funny. Ruzi Bibi says, there are so much history that I was not aware of Palestine. That's why I posted it. Alhamdulillah. Ruzi Bibi says, Alhamdulillah, you are so right, brother. Lions, children need to be wise. Indeed. Aisha Begum says, both of your presentation, excellent and wonderful. Thank you for the exceptional good show. Ruzi says, they are the next generation. Salma Rahman says, my 10-year-old and I cycled to the protest yesterday. Alhamdulillah. He got to see what it's all about, and I could see light bulb moment for him. Subhanallah.
Yes.
Yesterday's protest was bigger than the week before.
180,000 people yesterday.
I think it's more than that. That's what the official figure says.
Then it's probably
I think
double.
it's about 250,000. It was huge, mashallah. Okay, it's 11 o'clock. We need to finish. Shahid Latif says, spiritual is being pure to Allah, doing good work. And being and good to yourself, of course. Being decent and pure to yourself. Remember that. Anyway, what's your final parting word, Hannah?
My final parting word is, what is my final parting word? I really believe that without proper spiritual education, the next generation is going to struggle. So it's actually a job, it's a responsibility we have on our children to give them a solid foundation of what their faith is, what their spirituality is, and how to express their courageous self to the world.
My parting word is spirituality is about living. So live it as parents. And your children will see you, the manifestation of spirituality, and that's what they will follow. And if your own manifestation of spirituality is warped, then unfortunately your children's would be the same. So please, get it corrected, get it sorted. Talk to us if you need to. We haven't spoken about our book. So, here you go, Hannah. Your book is here. My book is here. My book is about marriage. Get your home sorted. Get the copy of the book. Get it as presents. It's wedding season coming up soon. Please, do tell people to buy. Give it as a gift to people. I'll sign a message and send it to the person that you want to give this as a gift. It's available on our website. That's barefootinstitute.com. /bookstore. And your book, please.
My book is all about spirituality, actually, but I'm also going through the brain, and I'm talking about neuroscience and how it can help you to become more spiritual. This is all about a spiritual journey for me, which I took many, many years ago. My husband calls it from my head to my toe, but it was from my head to my heart.
I haven't said that for a few days.
Yeah, you haven't. So that, I give it to you as a gift. So if you want to get to know your own spirituality, you want to learn and understand what's happening in your brain around this, so many interesting stories and so many wonderful research material about the brain and neuroscience, how to be better people. For me, that's what spirituality is about, how to be better every day. So when I go from this earth, I leave something better than it was before I came to it.
A good legacy. That is how you'll be remembered. Brothers and sisters, with these words, we're going to finish. If you need any help and support from us, whether it is spiritual coaching, whether it is life coaching, whether it is counseling for your marriage and your relationship, whether you just want to have a chat, we're here to answer you. We're here to support you. If you want to get in touch, go to our website. That's barefootinstitute.com, or just simply email us info@barefootinstitute.com, and we'll be more than happy to engage and help and support you inshallah. Until next week, from both of us, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.